Hey, all. Welcome back to the Mile 17 podcast. It's Colton. If this is your first time being here, thank you. And if you're returning, thank you. Either way, I'm just so glad, so thrilled, so blessed, grateful that you're here. And today I have a interesting topic to kind of talk to you about. I figured I honestly haven't brought too much in to this podcast of nursing, and that's been intentional because I don't want this entire show to be about nursing. It's something that I do, but I don't want to wrap so much of myself up in being a nurse. And I'm going to talk about that today. And so let's kind of dive into it. I want to give you like the top 5 things that I've learned so far from being a nurse in the last 5 to 6 years, and just lessons that I've kind of, when I sat down and thought about this and I was writing it out, I was thinking like, what have I learned? Like, what are things that I could pass on to other people who may be thinking about going into the medical field or who may not be? I mean, these are things that you can translate directly into the life that you're living today. So, nursing is not it's not an easy profession. I'm sure you all know that. If you're a nurse or you work in the hospital or you've been to a hospital with a family member or something, you'll know it's something that's not easy. It's not for the faint of heart. And sometimes, we get into professions like this and it's not what we thought it would be. The expectation that we had is drastically different than what is reality. And so I wanted to just kind of shed some light on that and give you my perspective. Again, this is all my perspective, my opinion, my experiences, and every nurse has had such a different experience as far as what type of job they have, where they work in the country, where they work in the world, the department that they're working in, all the different specialties that they've gone to, what they did during COVID. Like, it's literally, there are thousands, thousands, probably millions of different experiences as far as nursing goes. So, my top lesson, number one, and these are in no particular order, this is just what came to my mind first whenever I was journaling and writing this out, was or is that we're all going to die. And I've talked about this before. I've done episodes about this before about dying. And it's something that stays in top of mind. Like, it's always in the front of my brain. I'm always thinking about this. And it really is because I think like I've just been faced with so much death. And this lesson that I have taken from this part of my career, I feel is so important because it's given me something that like a lot of people don't understand and don't want to face and don't want to talk about because it's so scary and daunting. When you're thinking about your own mortality, it is terrifying. Like, to even think, whenever you start thinking, like, wow, I'm going to die one day, like most people just ignore that and act like it's not happening. And something that I've really started to do is embrace that and like embrace the fact that we are mortals and that we're going to die, because it's actually a beautiful thing. Because when you think about it and you have this little window of life, when you look at the world at large, like, our lives are actually so small and it's like a snap of the finger in the realm of time. And it's beautiful because when you think about it that way, it's like, well, if I'm only here for a short time, like, how do I want to live that? And, especially working in the emergency department, you start to realize that some people die quickly, some people die very slowly. This could be over years, just like slowly dying with a chronic illness. Some people die in car accidents, in helicopter accidents, in, if there was something with like a shooting or a stabbing, or like, there's so many ways that people die. They fall. And you just never know what's going to happen to you. And, you can only hope that you don't go out tragically and prematurely. And as far as, taking care of your health and doing the best that you can take the best care of yourself. You can be in the best shape of your life. You can eat all the right things, get the right movement. You can be mentally healthy, and you can walk outside and somebody can run you over with their car, and that's it. And this is not to scare you. I know it's very uncomfortable. It's just the reality. And so, if I was to walk outside today and get hit by a car, like, I want to know that what I've done up to this point has been my life, my choices, and that I've owned that part of me. And there's so many things that are out of our control. But the one thing that we do have control of is how we overall choose to live our lives. When I was a kid growing up, probably around like my teenage years too, my mom bought me this book and it was called The Dash. And I don't know if I've talked about this before, but it's stuck with me all these years. I feel like I've probably mentioned this before. But if you've never read The Dash or heard of The Dash, it's a small book. It's very easy read. I recommend buying it. I'm sure you could just look it up on Amazon, The Dash. And the whole idea is, how are you living the dash of your life? Because, on headstones at a graveyard, it's year you're born, dash, year you die. So our lives are that dash. And how are you living that dash? And I don't know why, like when my mom bought me this, it stuck with me forever. I have talked about this because I've mentioned that she worked in a mortuary, and I think that's probably where those books kind of came from, was that mortuary. That's my guess. I don't know. I'll have to confirm this with my mom. But how are you living the dash? Like, that's your life. Your life is just that little dash of time, and you can look at that as scary and daunting and terrifying, or you can just embrace that and be like, hell yeah, this is my dash. I'm choosing to live this way. When you die and people are at your funeral, they have all these wonderful things to say about you and how you lived your life. And nobody's going to care about the shit you were buying. Nobody's going to care about how your life looked on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok. Like, they're going to care about how you made them feel, that life that you lived, and the type of person that you were. And so for me, that's what that dash means, is like, how do I show up in the world? What am I giving to others? And how am I living my life to best fulfill what means the most to me, not to anybody else? So it's just something to really think about and to ponder, is you just never know when your time is going to come. And I'm not sitting here trying to tell you to like think so hard about like how you're going to die, because you have no idea. Like, we literally have no idea how it's going to happen. And so you can sit there and stress about it, or you can change your mindset and your perspective and be like, I'm going to control what I can about my life today. And if I do all the right things to me and I'm living this amazing life and I walk out tomorrow and get hit by that car, well, I did my best. So it might be like a fucked up way to look at it, but that's how I see it. The second lesson that I've learned being a nurse is embracing your community and having a community. And this is especially true in, again, nursing and the healthcare field, because yes, like, it's good to have your friends outside of work and have a separate life and have community friends in that. But I'm talking about at work, being a community there. And I think it's really important. Like, the people that you work with can really make or break your entire experience, because if you don't have a good foundation of people to work with, it can make for a really, really miserable time. I mean, nursing is a total team sport, and bad things happen. There are tragedies, and if you don't rally around each other and be that support, like, it's going to be really difficult, because if you're taking that stuff from work home and trying to talk about it with your spouse or your partner or your parents or whoever's at home, like, they may not understand, and to them, it's just like kind of a story. But when you're not there, you're not physically seeing and experiencing these things, like, it's just hard to understand. Like, you can't. I've told my husband stories of things that have happened in the hospital, and he just kind of looks at me with this blank stare, like, what? And I'm like, yes, that's what happened today at work. And it's like I'm telling it almost like it's no big deal. But then, like, I'll try to go to sleep at night, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh wow, this is kind of bothering me. So if you have those people that you work with that can understand, or even friends that you've made over the span of your career that you can call up and be like, hey, I just need to like talk about this thing that happened. Like, they can help you talk you through it, because they've been there. They understand like what you're seeing. And so, like, that community is huge. And again, if you're not in the healthcare field, fine. Like, whatever you're doing as far as like work or just like your life's purpose, like, find community of people who understand your struggle and understand your wins, because like these are the people who are going to best understand you when you get to those mountaintops, or when you're in those valleys, or like when things are happening. So, big takeaway. And especially if you're like a nursing student out there listening to this, like, find community and find people that you can lean on. This really became prevalent to me during the pandemic because it was such a dark time, and people who weren't working in the hospitals didn't really have a firm grasp. Yes, they could see what the media was telling them, and some was true, some wasn't. But if you weren't there experiencing things firsthand, and again, this was kind of different depending on where you lived, what hospital you were working, what department you were working in. If you weren't there to actually experience it, going home and taking it home to your family was just a whole different beast because they don't get it. They're not there. And so that's when this really was the lesson I kind of learned during COVID was I needed those people to just have support and to be able to vent and talk to. I mean, I didn't have a therapist at the time that would have probably been very helpful. It's kind of what therapists are for. But yes, just find community, find friendship, find common ground with people that are in the field that you're in that will understand what you're going through. Number 3, and this one's huge, is humility and to remember where you came from. Because I see this way too often, especially in nursing, and it's the saying that you'll hear 100 million times as soon as you learn or as soon as you get into nursing school, is that the nurses eat their young. And it's true and it's not true, depending on where you are, depending on the people. But when they do, they eat you alive. It is terrible. And I think a good reminder for life, career, whatever it is to remember where the hell you came from. Because when you become a master of your craft or you become a professional or you become, you know, something more than a novice or a rookie, you start to forget what it's like to be new and to be coming into something that's terrifying and you're wide-eyed and have no idea what you're doing. And then these people start being mean and bullies to the new people that they just were, and it makes no sense. And I think we've all kind of been there. There's been times in my career where I know I've been short and snappy and oh, maybe I didn't want a student that day or I didn't want to train somebody. And then you have to take that step back and remember I was there once. I needed somebody to step up and take me under their wing and show me the ropes and be nice to me and make me feel welcome and not everything I do is screwing up and that I'm stupid because then these people go home and it's then they don't want to come back because they're afraid. And if you don't have that support, it's just terrible. And I think just staying humble and remembering where you came from is just such a big thing in life. I feel when I meet somebody new, I I feel humility and remaining humble is one of the most special qualities that you can find in a human being because man, people can just be rough. And especially in healthcare, you have doctors that are coming down your throat. You have, everybody knows that you're new, so they're just kind of staring at you like you're this fresh piece of meat. And it's again, I know it's not like this everywhere, but it's just hard. And I hope that this reaches somebody and maybe it's just a good reminder for you that be that person that you needed. It's a huge saying. Be the person that you needed at one point. And for me, I needed people to be humble and to be nice and to be kind and to show me that they weren't there to pick fun at me or judge me or purposely do things to see how I would react or if I would, thrive in certain situations. So stay humble. It's a big one. The fourth one that I wrote about is time is money. And the further I'm getting into my career, the more that I'm realizing how important it is to have time. And I think that's because I've spent so much of my time working and putting in hours just to make all this money, which there's something to be said for that. Work hard, pay off your shit, put some money away. You want to do nice things, you want a nice life, you're going to have to work and you're going to have to work hard. But there's a balance, and time is something that is invaluable. You can't put a price tag on time. So if you're spending all of this time working and then you have no time to do the things that you love, enjoy your life, relax, and be with the people that you love, then what's the point? And I've gotten myself there so many times, more times than I would even like to admit. And I always have to remind myself, like, what am I doing? What is this for? And there's seasons, right? Like, there's some seasons where, like, you need to buckle down. You're going to have less time for all these things that you love to do. And you've got to just crank out the hours. And that's just the facts. But I'm talking about just like the overall arch of your life and, doing this on a consistent basis. Like this is why burnout exists. And this is how we get to that point. This is how I've gotten to be burnt out so many times in my fucking life because I will completely ignore my needs. I will ignore my body. I will ignore my brain screaming at me to lay down and not move and to just have a day to relax. And I'll work. I'll go put in more hours. And then I'm not showing up as my best self in my relationship and for my dogs, in my life, for myself, at the gym, towards my goals. Like when I put all of my time into my job, nursing and making money, there's nothing else for me to give. It's the tank is empty, the glass has spilled over, the water's everywhere. I have literally nothing to give and it affects every part of my life. So this takes time and this takes trial and error, and you're going to fail at it 100 times. I'm going to keep failing at it. But each time I'm going to get a little bit better and a little bit better until someday, hopefully, I have a good grasp on what my time actually means to me and how I want to spend most of my time. And I think this also plays a lot into like doing something that you love. So, like the idea that what you're doing every day doesn't feel like this monumental task of work to just like get through. I think that's huge. And I think that's something that's really important to be self aware of. Like, if that's how you feel on a consistent basis, like when you're showing up to work, that it's like it takes every ounce of your energy to get through, then like maybe it's time to reconsider because there's so many other fucking things you can do that you don't have to just sit there at this job you hate because you're making money. Like, no, get out. Like, go do something else. Like, I get it. It's not as easy. It takes time and planning, especially when you have kids and family, that people are depending on you. Like, there's so many factors. I understand that. But start making a plan, get an exit strategy. Like, your time is so precious and invaluable. I can't stress that enough. So, if you need this reminder today, here it is. You do not need to do a job that you hate. You do not need to spend all this time just going to collect that paycheck because that's what society told you to do. And again, I say this very lightly because I'm not saying to quit your job, not make any money, depend on somebody else, run to mom and dad. Like, no, you have to have these priorities. And yes, like you've got to get your shit done and you have to take care of your stuff, but don't spend your life doing all the stuff that you hate and like you put so much time at work. Like I've read the research, the studies, the people reporting on how much time you spend at work versus at home versus with your coworkers versus with your family. It is insane how much time you are spending at work and with your coworkers, that if it's something that you don't like and it's with people that you can't stand, you are literally spending your life miserable. So because like when you're off, like all you're doing is recuperating and trying to like reel it back in and get yourself back on track. And it's terrible. Like, what are you doing? And that's me looking at myself, like shaking myself, like, hello. I've made some changes. It's been amazing. Um, so far. I'm still not exactly like doing what I want to do at all times, but like I'm working my way there. We're getting there, baby. Um, got some goals. You're all on this journey with me, and I appreciate you and I love you. But yeah, man, like don't spend your life and your time doing all the shit that you hate. It I really think that that's what like leads people to like disease and just like these autoimmune diseases and chronic illnesses is like being so miserable and like just damaging your body from the inside, even if you look okay on the outside, because we have been conditioned this way. Like society has told us like that's what you have to do. And I just don't buy it. I just don't think it's true. I think that there's so many other ways to live your life. And if you can honor yourself and live a life that's the most authentic to you, like the best that you can do, like what more can you ask for? Like truthfully. Okay, I have the fifth and final thing. So we've got death, you gonna die. We have stay humble, have humility. We have find some community, friends. It's very important to have a good, strong community. The fourth one, your time is so precious. Make sure that your time is spent doing the things that mean the most to you and are going towards your values and your vision of life. And the last and final thing I want to talk about is your identity. You are not a nurse. You are not a teacher. You are not a bartender. These are just things that you do. You are you. I am Colton. Like what you're tying into your identity is so fucking massive and huge. Like nursing is something that I do. I help to take care of people. It is not me. And what I'm learning from this, I really learned this in reading Worthy by Jamie Kern Lima. It's an amazing book. She has an absolutely fabulous platform. Really, I recommend you check her out. She's doing some fabulous work in this world. But what she talks about is your self-worth is not linked to anything else external. So things that are happening outside of you, they may shake up your self-confidence and you may have to get your confidence back on track temporarily. Again, that's something that you have to build up, but it's not something that should completely derail you. But it can shake up your confidence, make you a little bit less confident in for a short period of time. Your self-worth never can be touched by anything else. So what she tells you is like you determine your self-worth. Like that's an internal thing. And whatever's happening outside of you is not to be affected by anything that's happening. So if you got the C-suite, you're in the top, the penthouse floor of this corporate job, you have the best views of the city, you're making all this money, and you lose this job. Okay. It's gonna shake up your life. Your self-confidence is gonna be a little bit injured, bruised, if you will. But your self-worth never changes because if you've done the work and you've thought about this in the correct way, nothing. That job never was your worth. That job never determined who you were at your core. And that's something I've really had to work through with nursing is that no matter what I do in my life, no matter what I choose to do, even if I end up going a different path and not being a nurse forever, like that's not my worth. Like it doesn't matter. Like, yes, like I care about it and it's like something that has shaped who I am and it's been a big part of my life, but it doesn't determine who I am. Like just because I work in the emergency department, it's cool. It's got some great stories. I'm thankful and grateful for the skills and knowledge I've obtained, but that's not who I am. Like I do that. Like I show up to do this job. I don't show up because this job is who I am. And I used to think like, oh well, if like things go to shit and my life is terrible, like at least I have this job in nursing, like to pay my bills and like like I can just like make this my life. And it's like, that's fucked up. That's how I used to think. And now I'm like, no, like that's not true. Like it should be, oh, it's cool. I have this job as a nurse. But if I lost all that and I could no longer be a nurse because of whatever reason, like, okay, that's sucks. I might have to grieve that process. And it doesn't mean that it's not going to make you sad and make you upset and a little bit angry, but that doesn't change who I am. Like nursing does not determine who I am at my core inside of my soul. Like I am me, I am Colton. I am not a nurse. Does that make sense? It might sound weird because like, yes, I get it. Like I'm a nurse. When I show up, like my job title is a nurse. But like that's not who I am. I'm not Colton the nurse. Does that make sense? I hope that that's translating the way that I want it to. Because inside of my head and inside of my soul, like I really, really feel that. So a good exercise is to like ask yourself and like journal about this, like literally just like on top of line of the paper, right? Who am I? Dot 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 question mark question mark question mark, like who am I? And really sit with yourself and wonder like who am I without this job title? Who am I if I'm not a wife or a husband? Who am I if I'm not mom or dad? Like who am I if I don't drive this really nice BMW? Who am I if I don't own this like beautiful house with acres of land? Who am I if I don't have this booming business? Or who am I if I don't have a million followers on Instagram? Like, who am I? And I think that that's really powerful when you can start to like learn and realize who you are and what are your biggest values in life, because then you start to like learn like what you want, and like just knowing who you are and like starting to like kind of dabble in that, you like start to realize like, oh, like maybe this thing that I've been putting so much pressure on and that I thought meant so much to me, like doesn't hold as much value as I thought. And that might help you to start letting go of some other things that maybe you've just been holding on to that have been extra baggage in your life. And once you free yourself from that, like you might feel so much better. So ask yourself, who am I? Okay. Yes. Journal that now. All right, friends. I hope that this episode helped you. And if it did, like pass it on, spread the word of mile 17. Keep spreading everything. We love more people coming in. We love the growing audience. Um, I something I wanted to share with you, just a little side note, nothing related to this. So I think I mentioned before I had signed up for the Honolulu Marathon. It's in December. I'm super excited. I've done now this year. I've done two half marathons, and so now from now it's June until December. I'll be in training, getting ready for Honolulu. I am so excited, but I had to mention that because it's the Mile 17 podcast. So it'll be interesting to see how different the mile 17 mark will be for me in Honolulu versus how it was in Boston. But I challenge you, get out there, do something that pushes yourself. Shout out to my husband. He ran his first half marathon with me a couple weeks ago and he killed it. He finished it. His goal was to just not stop and to just finish it. And in his head, that was a success. And guess what? It was a major success. It was awesome. He was like super motivated and inspired by the whole process. And I really challenge you guys to do something like that. And just once you start proving to yourself that you can do something that you didn't think you could do before, it's amazing the things that will start unraveling in your life. So I challenge you to do something. And again, what I was just telling you, write down some things. Who am I? What is this life all about? What do I want? What are my values? What is my vision? And start from there. But thank you so much for being here. It's the Mile 17 podcast. This is Colton. You can find me on Instagram at ColtonLord17. You can find me on TikTok actually now at Nurse Daddies. We've got me and Daddy Dazo. If you haven't seen us or heard of us, go check us out at Nurse Daddies. You can find us on Instagram or on TikTok. Obviously, you can find the show on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you stream. And we'll see you guys next time. See ya.